I want to welcome everyone today. Thank you for joining us to Las Vegas Market virtual presentation of First Look, April 2021 Home Furnishings. It's presented by Julie Smith-Vincenti of Nine Muses Media. I'm Kimberly Porter, the Senior Programming Manager for International Market Centers. We have an exciting lineup of webinars that are scheduled for this season, and this is just the beginning for our market. Which is taking place in just a few weeks, April 11th through 15th. We welcome you to join us on site and visit your favorite showrooms and see the newest products available in person. Registration information is available on our website as well. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and is available for CEU credit. Those who registered through Zoom will be emailed that information post-presentation. If you have any questions for Julie or about the presentation, please just write them in the Q&A box and we'll get to them towards the end. And Julie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Kim. I sure appreciate it. And greetings to everyone who's joining us. It has been a long time since we've connected, and I'm so happy that you're with us today. So our First Look program is a Las Vegas Market exclusive. It's a trend and products presentation that typically you can experience live at the show, but we come to you virtually now in these crazy, extraordinary times that we find ourselves in. The process is still the same though. We reach out to all of the tenants in IMC buildings, and we ask them to submit products that fall under some of the themes that we're looking for the season ahead. And then I have the great honor of winnowing down all of those selections into the few curated pieces that are part of our presentation today. Today is part one. Next week, at the same time, we're going to be looking at other product categories. Today, our focus is on home furnishings. And in fact, we've got a lot to get through. These are just some of the sort of word visualizations of some of the different ideas we're going to talk about today. And one of the things you likely noticed just in looking at this screen here is we're going to talk a lot about color and the color palettes that have been introduced by leading forecasting firms and paint manufacturers for 2021. So I'm going to kind of get right into purple. We're going to talk about purple. So first up for First Look is purple and the prominence that it's going to enjoy here in 2021. We noticed purple for various reasons at the beginning of the year, certainly on the global stage. Beyond its significance in the political arena, purple is an exciting color for several reasons in several categories and sectors, namely because it has so many connotations. It can convey everything from harmony and spirituality to luxury and royalty. Purple earns a spot when the vibe is retro. I want to make mention of that mixtape visual that you see on the left of your screen. That's a sneak peek of a trend program we're going to be putting on a month from now for Trend Watch, which is kind of like a cousin program to First Look, in which we're going to be looking at a kind of retro 80s vibe, and purple absolutely features very prominently in that color story. Notice how well that purple pairs with oranges and pale pastels and yellows in the lower right hand side of your screen. Those are some reissued ceramics from past decades, and purple provides this lovely backdrop for those hues. Notice as well how purple can convey energy and introspection. The visual on the lower right of your screen is from a Yayoi Kusama installation, and it really kind of helps to illustrate this idea. It's an infinity room. It gives a kind of digital, computer-generated, and even kind of a futuristic vibe to this hue. And I included it today because it also shows this sort of bright and lively spirit that you have when you are working with purples. Now, I'm going to look at a few different color resources then beyond Pantone and Sherwin-Williams, though you'll see both of those here in our presentation. This is from Shutterstock's 2021 color forecast. The reason I included it is because this digital sort of futuristic environment is important because of how much purple features in this palette. So Shutterstock, if you don't know, is a resource for stock images, stock illustrations, and videos. And what the company does, what this brand does, is they actually look at the hex code data in each pixel of its thousands and thousands and thousands of downloads. And that's how they come up with their top colors for the year ahead. And in this year, you're going to see, obviously, this beautiful yellow gold called Fortuna Gold. There's a grayish blue-green called Tidewater Green. There's an orange cast neutral called Set Sail Champagne, which pairs especially well with pastels. And what you're going to notice is the prominence of purple. This palette, in my mind's eye, is interesting because of that. And I want you to kind of just take note of some of the building blocks behind most of the palettes that I'll be showing you today. You see this yellow accent. You see these purple hues, you see a couple neutrals that pair well with pastels, and then you see blues, greens, or blue-greens. There's sort of a template to many of the 2020 palettes. So another example of that would be this Sherwin-Williams 2021 palette from their color mix. It's called Continuum, and it too has this yellow as an accent, neutrals that pair well with pastels, some blues or some blue-greens, and then the presence of a purple here and there. This palette speaks as to this Shutterstock palette because the influences behind Continuum are also this kind of technology-empowered smart living. And so at our fingertips, at the power control of our voices, we are triggering these responses of these technology, of smart devices. The colors here have both a sort of synthetic and a kind of natural sort of appearance. Pastels, they have been and will continue to be important in 2021. Pastels can be quite bold and they can be go-to hues for very comprehensive presentations. That is to say, these sort of multiples or clusters of product, very modern shapes as you see in this interesting mirror fixture, as well as in sort of prototype designs or new comfort technologies, new ideas. Pastel is a go-to, is certainly worth taking note of. Pastels are champions in Pantone's Terracotta Palette. This is from their Home and Interiors 2021 forecast. Pastels emerged at around about the same time, so years ago, that we started talking about Millennial Pink. But rather than whisper, these pastels for 2021, they're much bolder. These pastels convey warmth, awareness, not so much a whispered subtlety. Notice here as well the presence of a blue that's been punctuated by a yellow, or in this case, dusky citron, and a purple, lilac sachet. While many eyes may be on the color palettes, the color pairings of yellow and gray this year, take note too of how well purple pairs with these sort of rusty oranges. And I think that these images here are beautiful illustrations of that. Now, I'm going to kind of toggle back and forth between color, but I want to just kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about pattern. For those of you who've been coming to our virtual programming, our virtual sort of market experience for both First Look and Trend Watch, you know that we've been taking note and celebrating avian motifs. So they can take on many moods, as you can likely see here, from a very couture presentation to a sort of maximalist vibe to even a kind of tropical feel. But then a sort of new flight pattern has emerged and we started to see butterflies dominate. And we are still seeing butterflies as a common motif or pattern in home furnishings for 2021. What's interesting though is to kind of, in some of the higher end price points, look at these sort of decorative pieces where the maligned mosquito and the common beetle are elevated to these very bespoke decorative accessories. Now, where there are pollinators, there are flowers. And indeed, Flowers are another pattern that have been extremely, extremely important in the home furnishings stories that we've presented in the recent seasons. So in addition to the sort of modern varieties that are being paired up with geometrics in interesting ways, we can't help but deny these lovely bespoke examples that can be quite breathtaking. In home furnishings, flowers really gained, floral motifs and patterns really gained when we started seeing this celebration of what many forecasters were calling cottage core. These charming, quaint, and idyllic presentations of flowers that sort of ran the gamut from these impressionistic watercolors to even like pressed botanicals. It had a sort of celebration of the garden, celebration of being outdoors. And what's interesting is that that would go on to take major significance, especially as we've been navigating our way through this pandemic, where a lot of urban dwellers came to realize just how much they missed open spaces. We'll talk a little bit about that more in the end. And so I want to point out, it's worth mentioning here that the pieces, I've included a lot more product than our actual curation. When I highlight a piece by name and by company, it means that it made it part of our first look curation. As a companion to today's presentation is a PDF download. And I believe Kim mentioned, if you go to the chat, there should be a link to how you can actually download the PDF. And that PDF shows a visual of the products that I selected, and it shows the company name as well as the showroom location. So in our curation, we featured Zuo Modern's Tina accent chair. It's very charming in that it has these sort of floral motifs, a little bit even of a tropical vibe. It pairs up these blues and these green, and it also has a very modern spirit as well. Now, just as flowers were beginning to dominate in pattern as well as motif, we started to see that wheat and dried grasses inched ahead. Some of the designs we're featuring here, Howard Elliott's wheat metal wall decor stands about 19 inches high, and it's in this lovely autumnal gold finish. The abstract mid-century modern white ceramic vases are from Callaloo's new Sahara Collection, where there's definitely nods to mid-century modern, but even just in the way they styled those products with these dried wheat grasses speaks to that. I showed you Pantone's Terracotta palette for 2021, and look at how well those colors are sort of conveyed here, these mushroomy neutrals, these warm colors, alongside these lovely terracotta, these lovely oranges, and these gold colors. Speaking of colors that evoke a sense of calm and sanctuary, this is actually from Sherwin-Williams 2021 color mix, and this is called Sanctuary. It's very much about nurturing wellness and creating an environment of calm. To that end, these hues are a shoe-in in rooms where we seek the most calm and the most to rejuvenate ourselves and regenerate ourselves. So in the bedroom, I want you to take note here because Sherwin-Williams color of the year, Urbane Bronze, is part of this palette. And when I look at this, I can't help but think of a tannery. Or if you were looking at the handle or the swatch handle of a custom leather upholstery program, it's like every one of these colors would be part of that customization option. So to that end, here's a visual of that color of the year in greater focus, presented in a bedroom setting. Again, calm, serenity, warmth, tranquility. And note as well how this color looks with regard to live plant material, as well as how well it takes on mid-century modern, or as a backdrop for mid-century modern. That sort of mood is illustrated here in these first look curations. What we have is the Orbit Pendant by Jamie Young. And actually what they looked to was medieval turrets of European castles. And then they combined it with that popular circular shape of mid-century modern design for this Orbit Pendant. Leloy's area rug here, it's called the Issy Area Rug, marries mid-century modern geometrics, along with these muted color palettes and even heathered yarns. That definitely comes through in the design. Or as I mentioned, how this Sanctuary palette reminds you of your custom leather options for upholstery. I think this Flannery leather chair from Norwalk illustrates that point with its exposed striped webbing. This chair, like most of the Norwalk pieces you'll see in their showroom at Las Vegas Market and Building A, is available in a full range of hundreds of fabrics and leather. Here's some more of those very calming finishes on some case goods. What we have here is the Halle Dresser, which is on the left. It's from Simply Amish. Take notice of those very tall legs. It has a very elegant look as a result of that. In the company's words, this collection was inspired by a love of Audrey Hepburn. It's a subtle nod to the past that's timeless without being too formal. Meanwhile, you see Sherwin-Williams Color of the Year, Urbane Bronze, put to great effect here on this buffet from Mo's Home Collection. One of the things that's interesting when you look at this is the way in which we are still able to see some of that very raw wood finish, but presented in a more uniformed color, so a very evident finish, not so much just those sort of raw driftwood finishes that we'd been seeing for so many years. Moving on to Sherwin-Williams Tapestry Collection. This is about personality. It's about authenticity. Look at the color names: Enjoyable Yellow, Perfect Periwinkle, Jovial. And one of the ways that we saw this color put into play immediately was the area rug selection from Nourrison's Prismatic Collection. That's the area rug on the right. Upbeat, it's captivating, it's a hand-tufted design that's a wool blend along with these silk-like fibers to give it this very shimmering, a shimmering quality, a beautiful hand, and speaks to this collection, which has been one of the strongest in my mind's eye in our industry, where they are looking to nature as an inspiration source. I love seeing the new prismatic collections season after season from Nourrison. This wallpaper is not part of our official curation, but I did just want to give a nod to the artist. It's Laura Skinner. And what she's done here is mixed not only patterns from geodes, but also mixed in aerial visuals of beaches. It's a very interesting look, and speaks to this upbeat color palette called Tapestry from Sherwin-Williams. Now, it is not new that we are looking to nature these normally unseen spaces, these open caverns, these interplays of light and color. And these two images, in fact, have been inspiration images as we've solicited products over the seasons. And to that end, we're also seeing some nods to veining, taking on a very high-end look, and even tie-dye. Now, that piece on the right is from Brewmate. That's a tease, again, for next week's First Look presentation, in which we're going to look at gift and tabletop and housewares. I want to apologize. We may be photobombed by my cat in just a moment. Please get down. So with that, I'm going to shift focus to the lighting category, because it's such a perfect example of form and function in play. And really, it's the amazing LED lights that lead in this category. What you're looking at here is the Orbit fixture from Hudson Valley Lighting. It's supported by these very sturdy spacecraft cables to create both the balance and the precision. This is a customizable configuring. It's comprised of these metal rings and these diffusers. The LED lights on these are dimmable. And obviously, as you know, LEDs promise energy savings, minimal maintenance, and long life. Now, these circular shapes, as you see on these diffusers, are also showing up in other categories. And what we're looking at here is part of the first look curation. This is Cal Lighting's dimmable LED Pinewood Pendant. The LED, it's like essentially a strip of LED lights that's on the interior of that circular form. Again, these circular forms, these mid-century modern circular forms, suspended by a cable and is height adjustable. In the center, we have hand forged occasional tables that are new from Charleston Forge. And then the very urban living friendly Soho coffee table with that tray-like top. It has a dark ashwood veneer and stands on a metal base. These round forms are showing up also in other design, other categories, but most especially in lighting. So here's some more examples from our curation. These brass ribbons illuminate a continuous soft LED glow on the convolution sconce from Global Views. That's on the left of your screen. Umbra's infinity floating picture frames look great presented alone, but they also look great creating this interesting composition. And when you're combining both the 4x6 and the 5x7 designs, what I love about these is it's imagine putting together not just photos, but also original artwork, drawings, or even poetry. Take note of that. Drawing, original artwork, and poetry. I'm going to speak to that in the very last slide of today's presentation. And then in the center of your screen is Hudson Valley Lighting's Coil. It's a series of these metallic loops that start out small and solid and finish in this very nice, beautiful thin line. The LED is placed behind the alabaster shade, which creates this lovely glow, and you really see these veins coming through in the alabaster. Again, this looking to natural materials to provide these less than perfect, these unique patterns, which goes on to give home furnishings this sort of one-of-a-kind look and appeal. Beyond the circular form, though, we also received some submissions that spoke to facets and faceting in general. So here we have on the left is the Ashton Chandelier, also from Global Views. So rather than a precise repeating geometry, this is an asymmetrical shape that you're looking at here. It's crystal, cut crystal stones at the end of these different these different conjunction points, these different junction points. And it's this lovely gilded gold leaf finish. Cyan Design also plays with faceting on this new iron mirror. Plenty of angles, lots of depth. You can imagine this above a console table in an entryway, but also in a bathroom as well. And speaking of faceting, here's a new fixture from Allegri Crystal. This is their series fixture. It at the end of each of these crystal blocks is, and there's an LED light that illuminates each one of these hand-etched rectangular blocks. And this collection also includes really beautiful sconces, as well as an island fixture and a 4, 6, and 8 light chandelier variation. These elongated forms are also quite interesting in lighting. This verticality, these exaggerated pieces. On the left, we have Calco Lighting's Ashland Outdoor Wall Sconce. It's in a matte black and gold finish. It has a dimming feature, which is sort of unique for outdoor fixtures. Meanwhile, on the right, we have Hudson Valley Lighting's Hawkins Wall Sconce. It's actually a piece of sort of scooped out crystal in which the bulb is placed in that opening and has a very unique look to it. Something kind of retro, but also sort of modern as well. And I'm using these sort of gold and black presentations to tee up some of our more glam, our more elegant, our more luxurious presentation portion of First Look. And so here what we have is Diamond Sofa's 59-inch Solstice dining table, where marble and golden spokes are working together. That sort of linear pattern is repeated on the back of the Solstice chairs, which come in black or cream. In the center is just a lovely tabletop mirror from Howard Elliott. It's the Orson. The base is a black marble. You see that marbling repeated in the area rug from Mastur. Another example of this abstract design where the veining and this natural occurring pattern in nature takes center stage. And then we have the Pippin 2 light sconce from the Mitzi lighting line from Hudson Valley Lighting, very eye-catching design, and again, that sort of exaggerated verticality. So also metallic finishes feature in so prominently in conveying luxury, and here's two fine examples. So we have the Ember glass pendant from their 2 design, as well as this wonderful bedding collection from Anne Gish, where brush strokes of metallic finish seem to kind of stream across the textiles. Very beautiful collection indeed. We have been looking at the face and the human form as an inspiration source, and that has held true in the submissions we received for this season's First Look presentation, especially variations that kind of lean toward mid-century modern. So from left to right, we have the movable man on a short shelf, which is a metal and glass sculpture from Phillips' collection. It's about 24 inches high. The Faces and Places framed art series is from Global Views. We're showing 2 pieces from that series here. And I love how, depending on how you look at this design, it does take on a face, but it also does look like a sort of map or an aerial abstraction of a place. The pillow, Veronica pillow, is also from Global Views. It's embroidered, it's handcrafted and color blocked with bead accents. There's chain stitch upholstery here, as well as appliqued acrylic yarns. And on the right is a giclée, one of a giclée series from Studio Artique by Timothy's. And there are multiple pieces in this series, a couple more designs from this company in a little bit later in the presentation. So Pantone also has a very composed palette for 2021, and conveniently enough, this palette is called Composed. It's this wonderful blending of neutrals, pastels, cool grays, and tones of darker blues. It's timeless. What's interesting is it also really blurs this idea of gender-specific colors, and we're going to talk about that a bit in our presentation next week as well. Needless to say, what I wanted to point out with regard to this Pantone 2020 and Composed is look at how our past colors of the year from 2016, that first time that Pantone had twins for its color of the year, blue and pink, are still have traction in our marketplace. Here we see those 2, rose quartz and serenity, together. That being said, here's some submissions that speak so well to just the longevity built in those colors of and that color combination. So here we have Leather Italia's Power Motion Top Grain Leather Sofa in blue. It has both comfort and conveniences. There's a power headrest and a footrest. And right to the right there, which you can see, is a USB charging port. Meanwhile, beneath that blue sofa is Modway's Camber. It has a curved back design. It's an actual asymmetrical shape, but it's covered. So it looks like it has this like, don't ever sit in me kind of air about it, but in fact it's covered in a performance velvet. So it is in fact specified for everyday use. And then the image on the right there is just an image from a Pharaoh and Ball, and just shows how the mint green, or these green tones, are even adding some longevity to the blues and the pinks. Speaking of greens and blues, Pantone's 2021 Synergy palette is immersed in nature with its blues, the greens, this nurturing mood and feel, this healing. And we've been loving blues and greens for some time. These pair up so well together. And what's great about Synergy, let me just go back so you can see the presence of these purple hues coming in, is that once you mix in purple to these greens and these blues, it sort of adds a little bit of visual interest. It can kind of up the price point a little bit. And it also speaks to this love of bringing the outdoors in. This bringing the outdoors in took on so much meaning and significance during the pandemic, and especially for people who found themselves stuck in a sort of studio apartment in an urban city, feeling like they couldn't get out. These designs such as these were a great panacea for those kind of feelings of restlessness and a need to connect with nature. Modern Sprout's a great resource for indoor gardening kits. It's a great giftable item. And in fact, we'll see more from this company in next week's presentation, next week's part 2, first look. And then to the right, we have Umbra's Floral Link wall vessels, which are sold in sets of 3 that link together to form a sort of biophilic wall, if you will. And we received these new designs that have this very outdoor nature sort of form from RC Furniture, another example of bringing that sort of outdoor experience or that sort of outdoor form, a tactile experience into our interiors. And in fact, tactility has been one of the things. Tactility was something we talked about in great detail in 2020, and we will continue to do so in 2021. Products and textures and surfaces that invite us to touch them and that ultimately comfort us. That's conveyed through material itself, whether that is a 3D printed surface, whether an interior wall or exterior wall, or a textile that's made from corn husk, or even just the actual shape of the design itself. What we're looking at here is a ceramic table lamp from Continental Home, as well as a mirror from Howard Elliott's Marius collection, which has, it's a metal collection, and all the pieces have this acid wash finish and a sort of torn edge effect. Part of this tactility experience, we started to see these sort of artist marks, these sort of bits of hatching or these bits of stippling or pixelated, this sort of human hand as part of the pattern and the surface. And that's carried through and showed up to great delight in our submissions for First Look 2021. Here's a great example of that tactile finish and that very inviting texture and that sort of sense that the human hand has been part of creating that surface and creating that pattern. It's from Hudson Valley Lighting. Here's an example of that sort of a nice artist created line around the diameter of this glass bar collection. Speaks to the same idea. Even broad brush strokes conveying this idea. This is a design from Cass Rugs, has a lovely, beautiful feel to it. If they called it a sort of drizzle pattern, an almost drizzled paint pattern effect. That also comes through in these designs here, which are left to right. The Dotty Sand Ottoman from Essentials for Living. It's about 22 inches high. And again, you see this kind of dotted pattern. It's almost something like creating its own sort of maze, but you definitely get the sense that the human hand has been part of or instrumental in creating that pattern. The area rug is from Leloy. It's called Bennett. Has this wonderful soft feel, and what they're doing is they're playing this sort of carved technique. So where these sort of brush stroke or artist marks appear, it has a kind of high-low pile. Meanwhile, those cupboard books are from E. Lawrence Limited, and it has the pattern on this, which looks like it could have very much easily been created by someone who loves to draw, has a sort of raised surface. Same here too with this throw from Pom Pom Home. The image to the right is just a detail shot of a wallpaper, but again, you see this repeating geometric pattern, but this sort of linear effect that looks like it was created by an artist who was drawing or penciled that in. Ditto with regard to these designs from Capel Rugs. The rug on the left is from the Finesse collection. It's the Molly cloth. It's an outdoor area rug that would probably be just as well placed indoors as well. It's part of their Genevieve Gorder collaboration. And then this wonderful relief pattern that looks like a sort of hieroglyph of sorts on this vase from Studio A Home. I'm going to make mention of relief patterns as we near the end of our presentation. So you heard me mention that Pantone's first set of twins, the blues and the pinks together, were still had some staying power. Introducing 2021's the Illuminating and Ultimate Gray. Now, whatever your feelings are ultimately about this combination, certainly 50% of this color story is very dominant in either your wardrobe, your home, you name it. You can't go wrong, and grays are certainly so popular. To the point of my cat's photo bombing the presentation, I thought I'd just include this visual of the grays and yellow in play. Yellow is something we've been seeing in sort of spot placements in many sectors, whether that's in hospitality design, kitchen and bath, tabletop, cinema, music. In home furnishings, we're really just seeing these small bit placements of yellow at this point. The vanity is new for the Las Vegas market. That's from Modway, perfect example of that ultimate gray. I'm liking the illuminating and ultimate gray paired against the contrast of black and white. We talked about black and white being so instrumental to that vivify pattern or palette from Pantone. That being said, these pieces are part of our curation. And so we have from left to right, the dining chair is from Mercana. It has a lovely black painted finish on a solid wood frame. The open armrests give it a nice sort of mid-century feel. The gray and yellow area rug is also from Nurasan's Prismatic collection. And then two pieces of wall decor, a more playful presentation of the gray and yellow together. And this is from Studio Artique by Timothy's. This is part of their Contemporary Squares collection where you're sort of mixing and matching. And this is Tutti Frutti and Dotted Pineapple. Gray as an inspiration source. I included these two chess pieces because when we first had this presentation teed up, everyone was all the rage about the Netflix documentary Queen's Gambit. Needless to say, we have some accent tables that play on that theme. Zuo Mod's accent table on the left and Essential for Living's accent table, all in the shape of these sort of pawn pieces on the right. Some additional gray, we have a new upholstery collection from Mercana on the left. We have this lovely sectional from Adler and Tweed. And then we have this new recliner from Norwalk. It's called Elroy. And it has both swivel, glide, and recliner. So with that being said, some of the things that are on my radar remain these elongated lighting fixtures. The piece on the right is from Troy, and it actually, the light source actually flickers to create this torch-like effect. And so I'm noticing and taking note of placements in which I see mesh being used. Turmeric is a color that's on my radar here in 2021, and we see some great examples of that fittingly in a hospitality space, but also some great examples that we sort of snuck into our curation here for first look, in which we're seeing, again, another example from Callaloo's Sahara Collection. That's the mid-century modern vase you see in the center. You see the modernist pillow from Global Views on the right with these gold sequins worked into this lovely reddish orange color story. And then the fun and delightful handcrafted design from Justina Blakeney and Leloy. Another example of, while gray, all eyes on gray paired with yellow for 2021. Look at how amazing it looks alongside orange and rusty and terracotta hues. Now real quick, because I am running a little bit possibly running a little bit out of time. So some of the things that are kind of on my radar screen as we've gone through this incredibly transformative and interesting and extraordinary and harrowing and challenging time of the global pandemic. What are some of the things that we as home furnishing professionals should be mindful of for the seasons ahead and also the years ahead? The changes that this situation, the changes that this global challenge has presented with regard to where we work and how our children are learning and what it means to repurpose our homes into office spaces. While there have been many saddening stories coming out of the pandemic, it could very well be that we start to see that work-life balance come into a more healthful balance if we are allowed to work from home, and that's something that employers begin to accept as a way for us to still be productive, a way for us to still be collaborative, and a way for us to also be working from home. The impacts that the pandemic has had, something we should be mindful of, what it will mean for business travel, what it will mean for where our kids learn, what it will mean for how we set up the family spaces, office solutions that speak to the ways everyone in our family works. And to that point, here's a collection from Whittier Furniture. This is the Mackenzie collection, which offers pieces that cross from the living room to the media room, to the home office, to the bedroom. And so collections like this could have great resonance with homeowners, especially busy families who are looking for furniture solutions that kind of make an easy, allow family members to easily transition from room to room for work, for study, for learning. The pandemic has absolutely thrust us into the e-commerce world. We knew we were there. We knew we were either nearly there in home furnishings or needed to get there in home furnishings. That being said, the pandemic forced us to be shopping from home. The question then becomes, if we relied so heavily on online shopping in 2020, what does 2021 look like? Well, if we look at another thing that came away is that we now know that Cyber Monday, outpacing any of the other important holiday shopping days, hitting a total of $10.8 billion. What do we need to be doing now to be prepared for what the 2021 online shopping experience might be? In home furnishings, we need to be mindful of the fact that consumers are aching to be out and vacationing. So the extent that consumers were spending their discretionary dollars during the pandemic to be redoing their homes, to be updating their decor, to be updating their interiors, what do we need to be mindful of as those discretionary dollars start being channeled toward vacations, multi-generational vacations, and also that ongoing concern that we all need to have in the discretionary dollars being spent on electronics more so than home furnishings. How do we fit into that story of consumers looking to constantly be upgrading their electronics at a pace that far outclips their purchasing of home furnishings? We love a good period piece in home furnishings, and so to what extent is all this binge watching going to influence some of our style preferences? Might be worthwhile checking out or reacquainting ourselves with furniture, as we saw that play out in the backdrop of a London Regency era romances. We are starting to see some of those traditional influences on the apparel side from couture. We're also seeing that in home furnishings. Look at how these sort of classic portraits are incorporated into a very modern wallpaper that has this very colorful stripe. And again, notice too, the yellow as an accent, the purple is in the greens, and then neutrals that pair really well with pastels. While in the US shores, we may see these traditional settings as being a bit hospitality. It certainly is in the case on the right, the image on the right. On the left is an example of an interior from a recent Kips Bay. The balance on the US, though, will still be about incorporating these formal elements into a modern, open, airy backdrop. Relief patterns are something to be mindful of and keep an eye towards in 2021, as well as these upbeat palettes. This is Vivify. I'm from Chicago, and I just wanted to give a small little shout out to anyone coming into town. Absolutely get to the Art Institute to see the Bisa Butler Portraits exhibit. It's a perfect example of many of the palettes for 2021 in play. Absolutely glorious textiles. Take note, while these are quilts and it's applique, This artist's inspiration includes Romare Bearden, and this idea of collage is something that's kind of on my radar too, especially since we started to see mail art or postal art, sort of 1960s era idea that we'd be sending our art and not trying to sell our art, whether that was a poem or a drawing or even a collage. So that idea of collage is something that's on my radar screen for 2021 and could be on yours as well. So that concludes our presentation. I may have taken us right up to the end. I think I did. But if you have any questions, you're welcome to email me at the email address below. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Julie. We did have one question that came in during all of it. It was, what was the 3D wall company that you mentioned after RC Furniture?
Okay, give me just a moment. So the 3D after RC Furniture, well, the slide that immediately followed the RC Furniture was just an example, an illustration of Tactility. So there was no specific product being sold in that slide. I'm sorry if that doesn't help. But immediately after that, we showed a table lamp from Continental Home and a mirror from Howard Elliott. Hope that helps.
I'm sure it does. And for those of you who were joining us, you can also view the lookbook that was in the chat. And for those of you who are viewing this post presentation, you can go to our website and the link will be on there just so that you can see all of the products that Julie has mentioned. Again, we want to thank you for joining us. We do have next week's available, and that is for the gift, homewares, textiles, and that one you can link. The link is in the chat and also on our website. We have our upcoming market taking place in 2 weeks, and we hope that you'll join us there. And until then, be safe and have a great afternoon. Thank you.